So here's another story idea I've always kind of wanted to do, but I've never really been able to like pace it out because it's kind of like what I said with the Batman Hellsing crossover idea. It's been kind of like, oh, wouldn't this be cool? But then, it'd be cool, but the big thing is, I can think of certain scenes and somewhat of a story, but I can't really, figure out how to plot it and pace it all out. Because this would be a gigantic epic, and that epic is a Godzilla Gravity Falls crossover. Now, before I go any further, my good friend, and I guess you could say my apprentice, if you will, Alexander Inayez, he actually has a fanfiction called Kaiju Falls, which is in fact a Godzilla Gravity Falls crossover, and it's really spectacular. I suggest you go read it, because Kaiju Falls is amazing. It's on fanfiction.net. You can go check that out and enjoy it. But yeah, this idea didn't really springboard off of Kaiju Falls. It was kind of like another idea that I had, because I love Godzilla and I love Gravity Falls, so I kind of had a Reese's Pieces moment. But with all Godzilla crossovers, the big thing with Godzilla, when you want to crossover, and I don't think a lot of people get it, and I don't think people, when you think, oh, Godzilla should crossover with this, this, and this, the big thing when you want to do a crossover, especially one with a, I don't know, radioactive monster that's bigger than most skyscrapers, the big thing is that you want to, and this is the big thing with this is a rule with all crossovers, is that you have to, in crossovers, you have to give love to both characters and both sides of the playing field. It can't be favoritism over each other, one over the other. And I've seen this multiple times in official comics, official crossover comics. I've seen this also in fanfiction, but I've seen it done in crossover a lot, like the Batman Hulk crossover by Marvel and DC. That was more of a Batman story than Hulk. Batman Spawn by Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane. That was more Batman dick-sucking right there. So, that was kind of the thing. That's kind of a thing. And when you do crossovers with Godzilla, it's really hard to balance it out because, what can the other, especially if you don't do especially if you do a non-kaiju crossover. I mean, if you do a crossover like Pacific Rim or Ultraman or something like that, then you can probably, you could probably make the scenes work together. The big thing with Godzilla crossovers, especially, is when you do crossovers with shows that don't have kaijus in them. When you don't have you don't have, a giant you don't have a mecha or a mecha anime or a show with a mecha in it or something to that degree, and that's always the problem because then you're like, oh, the characters just stand around and watch Godzilla do all the work. Or the other kaiju do the work. That's the big thing with this story is that how do you make the Gravity Falls characters usable when Godzilla can just do everything and what they got to do? They just stand around and be like supporting anime characters. That's we believe in you, Godzilla. Power of hope. That's kind of that's the rub right there. So the story, in a nutshell, the story idea I had is that strange meteors have been flying over Gravity Falls. They've crash landed, and Dipper, as well as the rest of the Mystery Shack group, have been exposed to this kind of this cosmic radiation. However, eventually they discover this cosmic radiation has given them a psychic connection to certain kaiju. And the kaiju I had planned for each of these monsters, for each person was Dipper was of course going to get Godzilla. Seuss was going to be psychically bonded to Anguirus. Wendy with Rodan. Stan with Stan. I was kind of like I'm torn between Kumanga or Varen. Really. Ford was going to be with King Caesar, and Mabel was actually going to be bonded with Titanosaurus. Why Titanosaurus? Because Titanosaurus is awesome. That's why. And you're probably thinking, well, what about Mothra? That would be more of a plausible pick. Well, that's because I wanted to keep Mothra connected to the Shobojin. That's kind of the thing, is that I wanted them still connected to the Shobojin. So, yeah. So the five of them are connected to kaiju, and the kaiju are actually attracted to these meteors, and Godzilla, as well as the kaiju the others are connected to, start wandering into U.S. territory. Well, here's the big problem. the big thing is that G-Force, as well as the rest of the governments of the world, are freaking the fuck out because Godzilla, as well as a majority of the other kaiju, haven't really left Japanese waters. They don't really stay, they normally stay close because that's their home, that's their territory, and some of them do live on Monster Island. So when they go far north, mind you, very far north to the Northwest Territories of the U.S., everyone's kind of having a panic attack. And you're probably wondering, well, what continuity does this fit in terms of Godzilla? Well, the big thing is that the idea I had is that it's kind of its own continuity. It's kind of like a mishmash of continuities. Human characters from Heisei, as well as some story elements from the Showa era. So yeah, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of it's its own continuity with little bits and pieces, kind of like Rulers of Earth in a way, where it kind of takes the best bits of little bits and pieces of the universe. I did have the idea that Miki Sagusa is the director of G-Force in this continuity. She is the head director of this universe's G-Force, as well as several. She's the head of that, as well as what was another character I had in here? The son of Steve Martin. No, not that Steve Martin, the one from the 54 film. I'd have to establish that because some people are thinking, well, that's dumb. No, but yeah, it's Steve Martin's son from the film. His father was killed in, if you go by the American cut of Godzilla 85, yeah, he gets killed. It's actually one of the better scenes, the American version of Godzilla. Yeah, it's admittedly in that Roger Corman cut, it's pretty bad, but when Raymond Burr shows up as reprising his character role, it's a lot better, especially his standoff with Godzilla. So yeah, he's in here. He shows up and he's a member of G-Force. He's like a deputy director of G-Force now because even though Godzilla killed my dad, so I should be angry. No, I want to study this monster. And that's kind of the big thing with this. He's actually he's kind of like the deputy director, as well as he has a lot of influence over the American branch of G-Force. But yeah, his name was Bruce Martin. Bruce Martin was the original character in here. Throughout the story is that it was going to be revealed that the meteorites were meant to be like markers for the Exilians. Yeah, a different version of the Exilians. But I wanted to have it that the Exilians in here are from the same race we saw in Destroy All Monsters. In fact, I actually had the idea of, Destroy All Monsters happened, and that's the only time the monsters ever left their homes was during what they called the Destroy All Monsters event. And in there, they have now the Exilians have allied themselves with the Red Bamboo, who have created a device that will control all kaiju on Monster Island. They've secretly built machines, and they still have Ebra under their control, and the Exilians have amassed space monsters. They've basically amassed a space monster army. Like, all the space kaiju are in here, and they're ready to unload on the universe. I was kind of thinking, should I retcon King Ghidorah's death, or just say King Ghidorah did die and have Mecha King Ghidorah in the story? That's kind of the thing I was kind of contemplating whether or not to do. But anyway, so the idea kind of continued on is that the only kaiju that are not affected are the ones that have a mental link with Dipper and the rest of the Mystery Shack crew, and they're and before everything goes down, when G-Force discovers, oh, you guys have psychic connections with certain kaiju, and some people on both sides are like, maybe we can use this, maybe we can influence the kaiju to keep them from attacking cities, while other groups are like, nah, we have kaijus of mass destruction, let's use them on, people we think are wrong. Let's use them for our purposes. So, no, it doesn't go into a Civil War kind of form, but yeah, the rest of the Mystery Shack gang is like, one, we don't want to be used like weapons, and two, I'm pretty sure the monsters don't want to be used like weapons either. The other thing with this psychic connection is that it's not like with Sagusa's connection with Godzilla, whenever she made a psychic connection with him, where she would just try to influence him. Yeah, there is influence there. They don't directly control the monsters, but it's like a two-way street where they can each feel the kaiju's emotions. They can feel it. Like, they don't talk. Godzilla doesn't use Dipper to talk through. It's more like when Dipper goes into Godzilla's mind, he actually feels all the rage, the hatred, the loneliness that Godzilla feels, and it feeds into him. Like it's like a feedback. Same with Wendy when she connects with Rodan. When she would connect with Rodan, she feels his loneliness because he lost his mate in the Rodan movie, so he's a pretty lonely monster. With Seuss, whenever he connects with Anguirus, he feels Anguirus's sadness because he can't. Anguirus knows, I suck. I haven't won a fight ever. And with Mabel, whenever she connects with Titanosaurus, she feels his betrayal. She feels because he did trust Dr. Mifune. So he did trust him, but then Mifune used him in Terror of Mechagodzilla to hurt people when he was meant to be a peaceful monster. So that was kind of the big thing, was that they start feeling very empathetic for the monsters they're connected to. I don't know what kind of emotions that Ford and Stanley would feel for Varen and King Caesar, but yeah, kind of get the point right there. But yeah, again, this is a really cool idea, and maybe one day I'll be able to get a story out. But yeah, it's just kind of relegated to really kick-ass scenes and just a loose plot. I can't really think of anything like a story-by-story chapter. That's kind of the big thing, is that, oh yeah, look at the big picture. Now you got to look at the little pieces. That's the rub with writing, is that you got to connect. Oh yeah, it's a cool scene, and maybe you can work it in somewhere. But when you get down to writing, you're like, how do I start this off? That's the curse of writing here, people. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels that same curse. Is like when you sit down, it's like, oh right, I'm gonna write this big, great holy shit, where do I start? I didn't think of a start. I didn't think of how this opening chapter is, because that's the thing, people. And I can't be the only, and I know I'm not the only one on this, but whenever I try to think of like a opening chapter, it's hard. Like that opening chapter, man, it is tough. But yeah, so you guys tell me, what do you guys think of this Godzilla Gravity Falls idea? Do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? Just comment below, let me know. And yeah, who knows, maybe one day I'll write it. Anyway, so once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm out.